I know that some of you come from cultures and families where it is just so taboo to make the choice to not have kids. This story is going to be a huge encouragement to you. Hi, child-free friends. I'm Hannah.
When I was growing up, just like anyone else in my country, I would think, yep, I'm going to have kids. But deep down, I was just too scared because all I could think of was, this is what's going to happen to me. I'm going to be like my dad. I'm going to be out all day trying to make a little bit of money for the family.
Obviously, it depends where you're growing up in the world because not everyone is having this experience, but he probably represents a big portion of the population.
I'm not going to spend any time with my wife. I'm not going to go on vacations. I'm not going to be able to buy nice things. So
that sounds like a horrible life. I know not all parts of life are fun and exciting and, not everyone always loves their work all the time, but for him to recognize when he was a little kid that it was just going to sort of be this monotonous thing of providing for people and there wasn't really a whole lot of fun involved in life sounds really, really depressing.
So it did have a huge impact on me as a kid. I just, didn't think that it was an option for people to choose not to have kids back then.
Myra, when you married Tala, did you expect that you would have children?
Of course. I mean, it's totally unheard of to not have kids.
I think a lot of people from a lot of cultures can say the exact same thing. It is unheard of. We have the option, but people just don't recognize that it is an option because it's never presented as an option. It's just the default is parenthood for everybody, basically.
Especially in Pakistan, it's like, you have a job, you get married, you have children, you take care of those children. And that's what you do.
That can put a lot of pressure on people, especially if everyone around you is having kids.
What then changed?
It was a lot of factors, actually, because we had cousins and friends having babies all around us, literally. We started to have this discussion about when do you think we'll be ready to have children?
I remember when I went through this phase in life and everybody around me was having kids, literally everybody. And I felt like I didn't know a single girl that was not pregnant. I think that can feel really pressury for some females. People keep asking the question because it's just what people do.
It got to the point where we kept pushing it and we were like, okay, when we have so-and-so amount of money in our banks or when we're done with our masters or when we get a good enough job. It just came to a point where we were like, do we even want to have kids?
And it's so amazing that they actually came to the point, especially in their culture where they were able to ask each other that question. That's huge. That's a really big deal. And I know that some of you guys face that exact same thing.
I mean, it just seems like such a huge responsibility and so much pressure to put on a little child in this horrible world. And then we were like, no, we don't want kids.
Hey, it's Editing Hannah here. Funny story. The video I was reacting to was part of a very, very long video where they were doing interviews with different couples. I thought I had picked out all the clips of this specific couple and reacted to them. Nope, I forgot some of the sections. So I'm just going to continue reacting to this like it's still the same day.
Tala, what was your childhood like?
I grew up in Pakistan. I would say I was at the lower end of the middle class spectrum. It was interesting watching my parents struggle every day, doing 2 jobs just to make ends meet.
I can definitely relate to coming from a household that is on the low end of the income scale. My dad was ESL, he spoke very broken English, and the types of jobs that he ended up qualifying for were minimum wage, manual labor jobs.
Every day we could see their relationship falling apart, and every day they were just telling us we're putting ourselves through hell just so that you can have a good life and we can give you something to do with this world, and we want to give you the best life possible.
I feel like that's such a burden to put on your children. My parents never said that to us. They worked really hard for us and to give us what they could, but they never made us feel guilty about the fact that they were working hard.
Tala, you and Myra were married for 7 years when you decided to get a vasectomy.
Yes.
How did you feel about that?
It was a bit of an emotional day when we actually got the vasectomy, but I would say I was quite relieved when we had it done.
It should be just as easy for women to get surgically sterilized as it is for men, although that is not the story that I seem to hear. It seems to be for men, they go to one clinic and they have a discussion with the doctor and it's all like, yeah, good, let's do it. And women are going from clinic to clinic to clinic.
The experience itself, I wouldn't say the best experience, but once it was done, it was just a huge burden that was lifted off our shoulders after that. We just felt so much relieved.
I'm so glad it worked out well for him. I imagine it was uncomfortable, painful, not the best day of your life. It sounds like he is very satisfied and happy with the choice that he made, and that's how it should be.
How did your family react when you told them about the vasectomy?
We didn't actually tell them.
Right.
So we didn't tell our families because they wouldn't react too kindly to it.
Okay.
Because they would just say, well, what is wrong with you? Because they weren't too happy about the idea when we told them we're not actually going to have kids.
This is always the thing that bothers me. They're adults. They get to decide for themselves. They don't have to have the approval of the mom or the dad or the aunts or the uncles or the cousins or siblings or anybody. We make those decisions because they're the right decisions for us. And often I think too much emphasis is placed on what does everyone else around you think.
Your mum is actually a fertility doctor, is that
Yes.
correct? So that would be an interesting conversation, I imagine.
It would be really interesting because even a couple of years ago, people would say to my mom, hey, you specialize in infertility. Why is your son not having any kids? You know.
Can you imagine? This is getting personal. The lines between doctor and mom would be so blurred there because let's be honest, you probably don't want to have those kinds of discussions with your mom. You're always going to lose if your mom is a fertility doctor. Yeah, I see why they didn't tell their parents.
So she just thought it's just something we'd eventually, move past. We'll change our mind as we grow older. So every time we do something, if we bought a house, they just say, oh, great, you've got a house now. You should have kids. You've been on a vacation. Have a kid.
Oh goodness, the way people think, it cracks me up. I mean, it's not really funny, it's kind of sad. I guess parents, though, they never really stop being parents. There's a time to cut the cord and just let kids do their own thing. Who doesn't want to have a good relationship with their parents, but you feel like you can't even tell them what you're doing in life because they're just going to judge you and criticize you, and that kind of sucks.
Tala, in your culture, how important is it for a man to be a father?
It's something that you're taught since the day you're born. You grow up, you need to have kids. So it's like, they say your religion tells you to have kids. The culture dictates you need to have kids. Everyone around you has kids. The moment you're growing up, you see all your elder cousins getting married. Boom, 1 year later, they've got a baby on the way.
1 year after getting married? Don't you just want to have time with your spouse in that specific culture maybe, or the religion that they're in? Life is having kids. Us child-free people think about that really differently because we don't view life as having children. We view life as whatever it is that we're doing right now. That's life. You don't have to have kids for life to start, which I have heard people say that. They're like, oh, we're just waiting to have our family to start our life.
As you're growing up, it's a no-brainer. It's not even a question of whether you can afford them or not, whether you're with the right person or not, whether you're in a bad marriage or not. You need to have kids regardless.
It is just mind-blowing to me that someone would just say, hey, you're with somebody now, have a kid. Forget about all that other stuff. It'll figure itself out. I think that's a very irresponsible way to look at having kids. You're not giving that kid half a chance when you can't provide for them.
Watching my parents' relationship just implode, and the way I grew up and the way I felt, I would not wish that upon any child. And the way I am, because of all that I've experienced, I feel like my child's going to suffer the same. If I was to have kids, I would have had a kid just because I would have wanted just a genetic copy of myself. And then I just would not have been available physically or emotionally.
This idea of just having a kid just to have a kid because that's just what you do, and who cares if you're not ready and you don't have the finances. I don't understand it at all. I just don't get it. It just seems like you're giving your child such a disadvantage in life.
Is the concept of legacy important to you?
I personally believe your legacy is what you do, what people remember you by. We all know Muhammad Ali, the boxer. We didn't know his dad. So he's made his own legacy. So I personally believe that when I die, I want to do enough for this world that people remember me for who I am. So for me, legacy is what we do while we're here. It's what we do what matters.
I don't really think that much about leaving a legacy. I don't really think about what people will think of me when I die or how I will be remembered. Maybe it's a bigger deal to guys to have their legacy carry on, but I don't know. I've asked Michael if he cares about his legacy and he's just like, no. So that's how we feel about that. This video is going to help you realize you are not alone in your choice to live without children.